Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure to meet yet, my name is Dr. Peter Chen. Before I introduce Helen Williams, who's the Secretary for the Department for Communications, Information Technology and the Arts, who is going to be giving the closing address on behalf of the Minister, who unfortunately has been unable to attend today, I'd just like to say one or two quick things by way of housekeeping. The first is obviously thank you. Thank you all very, very much for attending the conference. We appreciate it greatly. I have enjoyed myself greatly. For those of you who I've known in the past, it was wonderful to meet you again. For those of you who I hope to see a lot more of in the future, it was an excellent opportunity for people interested in politics, new media technologies, top-down, bottom-up, whichever your focus is, to get together and talk about what's the issue, where are we going. I'd like to just extend a quick thanks, if I may, and the thanks is to our sponsors. Truly, it is true wisdom when we know we have ignorance in any particular area of activity. And so I think that our sponsors who've come in at the beginning of, a kind of the Australian academic and practice areas, engagement with e-governance, e-democracy, e-participation, e-citizenship issues, at this point in time, at the kind of ground floor, show a reflective awareness of how much we need to know to reflect on areas of e-governance practice and scholarship. And so we must thank Multimedia Victoria, the Australian Government Information Office, Upstream Streaming Media Network, Cisco Systems, the Victorian Local Governance Association and the Government of the United States of America for the very, very kind contributions to make the conference possible and to allow us to put it out to the world on the internet. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome and thank Helen Williams, the Secretary of the Department for Communications, Information Technology and the Arts.
Thanks, Peter. I really do, on behalf of the Minister, want to apologise. It was only a couple of hours ago that he rang me and said that he's stuck in a cabinet meeting. As you can imagine, before budget these things go on. He thought he'd be able to get out and catch the plane down and get here himself, but unfortunately they're still going. So his apologies. And I'd just like to say this is his speech, so forgive me reading it, and also when I use the first person, please think Minister. The speed and professionalism with which e-government is now being delivered from local government right through to the Commonwealth sphere is remarkable given its novelty. In its earliest manifestations, e-government was primarily about the delivery of services. Now we've entered a new and more ambitious phase. We want to engage citizens on a deeper level, to realise the tremendous potential of new technology offers for strengthening democracy, and we want to focus more on the needs of the individual user of government services. The next phase of e-government will involve greater collaboration between agencies and across all tiers of government. Almost a quarter of all Australian businesses now have a web presence. 1 in 4 Australian adults now use the internet to pay bills or transfer funds. 15% of us are comfortably shopping online. Australia is right at the leading edge, not only when it comes to our embrace of the information age, but our transition to e-government. The United Nations World Public Sector Report 2003, E-Government at the Crossroads, ranked Australia third in both e-government readiness and the quality of its government websites. And last year's TNS Government Online Study found that Australia remained one of the leading countries in terms of uptake of e-government online services. Much of this reflects the success of the National Office for the Information Economy in raising awareness of the importance of the information economy to Australia's broader economic growth. With information economy issues now having a well-established profile, it's an appropriate time to integrate those functions of NOE that complement the activities of the Department of Communications, Information Technology and the Arts with the department. And an office for the information economy has been established within the department that will maintain Australia's reputation as a world-leading information economy. In addition, the government has established a separate body, the Australian Government Information Management Office, or AGIMO, to focus on e-government itself. It will promote and coordinate the use of information and communications technology in the delivery of Australian government programs and services. There's no doubt that e-government has come a long way in a relatively short period, but we must guard against complacency. The government has higher expectations of e-government and online service delivery than it had a few years ago, and the public similarly has far higher expectations. Delivery of goods, services and information in the private sector has been transformed by new information and communications technologies, and these developments are all helping to heighten expectations in a way that we wouldn't have expected, say, 3 or 4 years ago. Pressure from users, coupled with the pressure to integrate and share knowledge across traditional boundaries, means that the challenge for government is considerable. The next phase of e-government will not only be about agencies working online with each other, it will be about agencies working online with non-government organisations and with the private sector. It will also be about sharing and exchanging information to work more efficiently with and to gain a better understanding of the communities these agencies and organisations serve. Our next steps must be about innovation. They must be directed at making services even more convenient, easy to use, faster and more responsive. E-government is enabling agencies and even different tiers of government to share information and exchange data. One example is the government's business entry point, which draws together from across all jurisdictions information relevant to setting up and running a business. A more recent example is the system devised by the government in partnership with the Local Government Association, whereby information collected by Centrelink can be accessed by local governments to assess someone's eligibility for their own concessions on property rates or other services. The Australian Government is helping to ensure that such information is technically feasible. For example, through the Networking the Nation programme, we are helping to put in place a local government interoperability framework that will improve the capacity of all 3 tiers of government to share information. We've also been working with all levels of government on a national service improvement project. This project is taking a strategic, coordinated and national approach to achieve the aims I've just discussed. Sharing information between agencies and between levels of government raises issues of privacy and the integrity of personal information. The government remains committed to ensuring that information is held and exchanged in a secure manner and in accordance with rigorous standards. Unless the public has faith that personal information is secure, it can have little faith in e-government. The Privacy Act 1988 has broad application and strict requirements in relation to the protection of personal information held and used by governments. In addition, the government is implementing a number of other initiatives to ensure the integrity of personal information. For example, the National Health Privacy Code covers the exchange of health information between hospitals, pharmacists, other health providers, researchers, law enforcement agencies, government agencies and individuals. And the government is working to increase the number of agencies connected to FedLink, which is a secure information communication system for emails across the Australian government. A further issue associated with the transition of e-government is the concern that we may become too reliant on the electronic delivery of services to the detriment of some members of the community. Many of us may recall the social ripples that accompanied the electronic revolution in banking. The success of e-tax and other electronic resources such as the Business Entry Point and Australian Job Search are signs of a fundamental shift in how some Australians expect and prefer to interact with government. Government needs to satisfy this market. It makes sense in terms of efficiency and efficacy. But government also needs to continue to engage with the community in the more traditional ways by telephone, post and face-to-face. The more avenues for engagement, the better, and the more choice offered to citizens. While information and communications technologies can make collaboration easier, it cannot guarantee it. Success depends as much on the desire of people to be involved in the decision-making process as on having the physical opportunity to do so. It cannot be stressed enough that technology is just a tool which can be used expertly or inexpertly. And e-government is just like old-fashioned across-the-counter service. It can be good, indifferent or downright awful. The AGMO will play a critical role in ensuring that we avoid the indifferent and downright awful end of the spectrum. One of its roles will be to ensure that agencies have skills to engage the community in e-government. Through its better practice seminars, checklists and case studies, the AGMO can help specialists and even non-specialist managers understand how technology can be employed to improve service delivery and agency efficiency. AGIMO will soon publish a number of new checklists to complement its existing series. One of these, the Better Practice Checklist on Online Policy Consultation, will help agencies decide if and when to use the online medium as a tool for consultation, giving the community and business greater choice when it comes to communicating with government. Work is being done on this front across 3 tiers of government, and of course you will have heard about some of these initiatives over the past few days. The Queensland Government's Community Engagement website is a particularly successful initiative of the new Department of Communities. A recent trial by the Queensland Parliament of e-petitions has proved that people are very attracted to the idea of making petitions to Parliament online, supplementing but not replacing the traditional paper processes. And at the local government level, the Brisbane City Council was recently a finalist in the 2004 Stockholm Challenge for its Building and Engaging Successful Communities Online initiative. In Western Australia, the Citizenscape Government Portal provides a range of opportunities for citizens and decision makers to engage online. In the ACT, the Community Consultation Portal allows members of the community to comment online on projects and proposals. And in 2001, the ACT government trialled electronic voting for the first time, showcasing the potential of technology to allow people with disabilities to vote in private. Right across the country and all tiers of government, the potential for online consultation is being explored in a myriad of ways. What is needed now are better methods of calculating the effectiveness of these initiatives. If we've learned one thing from the bursting of the global dot-com bubble, it's been that it's possible to be too enthusiastic about the promises held out by new technologies. We need to be strategic in our investments, and that means developing a sound business case for any investments we make. Clarifying the scope, benefit and costs of a project helps an organisation understand the likely impact on its business and helps it to manage expectations. But how do we estimate these things, let alone measure an impact of a particular investment? A blunt measure of return on investment cannot fully account for the non-financial intangible benefits of an investment. This may be particularly true of e-government strategies that have as their primary aim enhanced engagement between community and government. It's difficult to put a dollar value on the creation of new social capital. We might intuitively feel that a decision made after exhaustive consultation is better than a decision made with no reference to public opinion. But how do we measure the value we put on that consultation? Return on investment will always be an important measure, but in many cases it cannot be the only measure. A reliable and consistent method of evaluating non-financial benefits is needed if we are to get a true measure of how effective our investment in e-government has been. To this end, the AGIMO recently developed some tools that can be used by government agencies to assess the value of their e-government initiatives, taking into account these complex factors. The demand and value assessment methodologies will help agencies to develop transparent and easy-to-audit assessments of demand and value for e-services. The focus of the user of e-government services, the farmer, small business holder and householder, reminds us that even the more impressive e-government service is wasted if people cannot or will not use it. The government has devoted considerable resources to the agency end of the e-government equation, but we recognise that to be of any use, a service needs to get to the user and needs to arrive in good shape and in good time. That is why we've encouraged the take-up of the internet by all Australians, from the largest corporations to the smallest owner-operated businesses, from inner-city households to the most remote of homesteads. And it is why in more recent times we've encouraged the take-up of higher bandwidth connections. These connections, available across a growing number of platforms, deliver faster and less frustrating internet access. They put business, households, schools and hospitals within the reach of important new services that are difficult to deliver or simply undeliverable over dial-up connections. As an example, the potential of broadband to transform the delivery of health services to rural and remote Australia is particularly profound. In January this year, NOE released a report which gave us some indication of the dramatic impact the rollout of broadband could have in the hospital sector nationally. The anticipated benefits are both economic and social. They could include reduced travel time and cost savings across the board for the public, practitioners and government. They could include greater support to staff working in remote and isolated facilities and earlier access to specialised care for their patients. Broadbands can help health practitioners remain in touch with the latest developments in their fields and can make training and professional development less burdensome. It allows the instant transmission and retrieval of electronic records, including X-rays and scans, and in fields such as ophthalmology, radiology and fetal ultrasound, broadband is transforming access to care. Patients who once have had to travel long distances to obtain care can now consult a specialist thousands of kilometres away in real time. According to an Access Economics report, the adoption of broadband by those major Australian hospitals that are currently without the technology could have a net public benefit of 190 million over 10 years. Broadband has the potential to link general practitioners, allied health professionals and hospitals in a professional web that has the capacity to deliver far greater continuity of patient care. This means a potential reduction in unnecessary duplication of tests and investigations and a valuable sharing of professional opinion. I've used the health sector to show the transforming potential of broadband in just one area of endeavour. But as you know from your own experience, this sort of transformation is occurring right across the economy. There are now more than 5 million internet subscribers in Australia. Of these, more than 610,000 enjoy higher bandwidth access. And the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission predicts that if current trends persist, the subscription figure will top 1 million by July. The government believes all Australians should have the opportunity to participate fully in the information age, and it will not be long before full engagement will be impossible without higher bandwidth technologies. It's important that all Australians have the ability to access these services, including Australians living outside the big population centres. I recently launched the National Broadband Strategy, developed in collaboration with the state and territory governments. It aims to give regional Australians access to broadband connections at prices broadly comparable to city prices. As part of the strategy, the Australian government has set up a 107.8 million higher bandwidth incentive scheme. This gives industry a financial incentive to roll out high bandwidth services into areas they would not normally regard as commercially viable. We have also established a coordinated communications infrastructure fund, which will help build broadband infrastructure in the key sectors of education and health, which, as I've just outlined, will be a major beneficiary of improved access to broadband infrastructure. Encouraging the adoption of broadband technologies is one way in which the government is making sure that the next generation of e-government services get to the people for whom they're designed. But users of government services online are a diverse lot, and keeping such a diversity of users in the centre of the frame as we embark on the next phase of e-government is not going to be easy. Just because something is a challenge, however, does not mean it is an unwelcome challenge. That is the business of government. There is a great deal to look forward to for all tiers of government as we explore the deeper potential of online governance. And conferences such as this one are ideal forums to remind ourselves of these opportunities as well as the risks and hurdles ahead. And in closing, the Minister has again asked me to thank the Public Policy Centre for hosting this conference with speakers of such calibre as Professor Bruce Bimber and Professor Stephen Coleman. He's asked me to acknowledge Upstream, which of course has webcast the entire proceedings. And finally, again, he has really asked me to apologise he wasn't here in person to deliver this closing address. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We will be in touch with regards to the archive of the webcasts, the complete paper of proceedings, and eventually the book. Goodbye.